do you come home after a given day and you go, holy crap, I had so much to do? Like my work demands were just through the roof.
Oh, literally also daily. Yeah. No,
Doesn't surprise me.
I'm Keaton Fletcher, an assistant professor of industrial organizational psychology at Colorado State University.
And I'm Mariana Arvon, an organizational psychologist who specializes in organization and talent development.
And this is Healthy Work.
Mariana and I recorded a video version of this podcast, and that's available on our YouTube channel. Links in the show notes. So if you want to check out the video version of this podcast, go there. Otherwise, continue listening in our classic audio format. Thanks.
Hey, Keaton.
Hi, Mariana. Good to see you again.
Good to see you too. So I have a question for you. Actually,
What?
2 questions.
Oh, no. You only get one. Just kidding.
On average, how often would you say that your work enriches the way that you do things at home, right? Your family life, your life with your kids, with your beautiful wife.
Oh, man. Daily. I'm very blessed in psychology. Like, I'm learning about how people work and function, and I can apply it. I mean, it's hard to practice what you preach, for sure. So my therapist will say something, I'm like, yeah, no, I guess I know that, but like, I need someone to tell me to do it. I've got tools in my toolkit and words that I wouldn't have had if I weren't a psychologist. And I think too, Kim and I do the same thing where like that's something we bond over. We spend time at night just like talking about science and talking about papers, and it's very nerdy. I think we'd be a very boring couple to anyone else, but like I think it brings us some closer in meaning. What about you?
Yes, I love that. So I would agree, not quite a one-to-one correlation with sort of like what I do and what my husband does. But in general, I do find that the things I learn at work, like even just something as simple as asking people really, really good questions and trying to understand where they're coming from and what they're headed towards, like makes me better. In my role, I do a lot of consulting. So like I'll ask Marcus really good consulting questions. Like, well, tell me more about why you feel that way. You know, maybe sometimes he finds it pisses him off, but I love it. And I think it makes me a better partner for sure. And then yet also just like a lot of patience you learn in your job for sort of where people are at. And I definitely bring that into my life with my little one. So that's great. I love that we have some work family enrichment going on. My second question to you is, how often do you come home after a given day and you go, holy crap, I had so much to do? Like my work demands were just through the roof.
Oh, literally also daily. Yeah. No,
Doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, poor Evan. So my oldest last night was like talking to me, and he's like, I want to show you this thing that I did at school of like the life stages of a butterfly, but with like hand motions and some Spanish built in. I was like, go for it, buddy. And he's 6. So something that should have been 30 seconds was like 6 minutes long. And by the end, I had fallen asleep.
You know what? I did not see the story going there. That's, you
No.
know.
I was just drained and zonked by like a really long 3 or 4 days at work specifically. And I just did not have it in me to keep paying attention to and I love him. And so then like I asked him to do it again today and it was fine. But like, I think that's just an example of like all the time this happens, whether it's like the amount of energy that I have or like the time that I have. I try to protect my time, but that's not always doable. And even just like the emotional headspace that I'm in sometimes. Like I come home from work frustrated sometimes, and like it's hard to like shut that off and then be like an enthusiastic dad or an enthusiastic, like excited, happy, positive partner. Not that like we owe anyone positivity, but like, you know, you want the frustrations of work to not impact how you're interacting with your family.
Yep, 100%. And what's so great about that, I think that's going to get at this paper that we're going to talk about, is that on the one hand, there's so much good that you're taking out of your job and the many demands that come out of it. But on the other hand, sometimes you're completely fried and you know you're not able to be at your best for your kid. To be fair, 6-year-olds tell very long, meandering stories. And
So
it
long.
literally...
My God. I was like answering him as I was falling asleep. And at like one point I remember him being like, what? I was like, oh, sorry, bud.
Okay, that's amazing. That's amazing. So note to self, when I'm having insomnia, make my daughter tell me a story, which honestly would, yes, she's only 2.5, but she's right on the Evan track. Like it will be like an hour of, yes, meandering. Okay, so, well, thank you for sharing your personal experience. That ties into a paper that I have for us today by Junker et al. It was just published in Work and Stress. It's called The Relevance of Work-Related Rumination and Boundary Control for Spillover Effects from Work to Home, Results from a Daily Diary Study. And this paper was pretty cool because what they were trying to do is sort of reconcile this very strange, conflicting results about workload, like qualitative workload, how much work do you have to do, and sort of positive spillover from work to home. Because this is like this big thing with workload. I spent a long time since I've been in grad school, but like workload was always this really weird variable where like sometimes it was good, sometimes it was bad, specifically when you look at work to home enrichment. So like the stuff we talked about, like how does your work bring you skills and resources and energy that make you better at your home life? They were finding inconsistent things in the literature. And sometimes they would try to be like, well, in general, how much control do you have? Like, over your job? Does that moderate it? Does that make it better when you have a high workload? And it was just not consistent. So what they really wanted to look at was how is the unique experience of workload differentially impacting work to home enrichment, depending on the type of cognitions that you're sort of taking away, right? So as a result of your high workload, are you engaging in work-related rumination or are you engaging in problem-solving pondering? Like, are you like, oh, I'm so energized by this. This is so cool, right? Let me think about this creative way to tackle this problem, which I do a lot. But you also might be on a day where it's like, oh my gosh, I'm tense. That was so intense. What am I going to do about this, right? And so they wanted to look at that pathway, right? You have high workload. Maybe one day you're doing this work-related rumination. Maybe you're also doing some problem-solving pondering. And how does that predict work-to-home enrichment? So like they proposed, obviously, if you're doing work-related rumination, it's going to negatively affect your work-to-home enrichment, right? You're falling asleep. So you're like, I'm too tense to talk about the butterfly, Evan. I'm so stressed out. I'm out, right? But on the other hand, if you're like, oh my God, Evan's story of the butterfly is making me think about these different problems I need to tackle at work, right? Then it's all sort of connecting. And so the idea is that problem solving pondering when you have high workload will predict higher work to home enrichment because you're sort of on a positive roll, like you're feeling this creative energy, you're feeling that self-efficacy, etc. But they also proposed that your own perceived sense of boundary control, like I have the ability to control those transitions between my work and home. They thought that that would be a moderating factor. So like to the extent that you're like, yes, I do control the extent to which work comes into my home space, and I have that power, that would make the positive association between work-related qualitative workload, problem-solving pondering more strong, and it would make the negative association between work-related rumination and work-to-home enrichment less strong.
So you can be like intentional about how it's helping you. Like because I can control my boundaries, I'm going to use this and feel better about it. And because I control my boundaries, I'm not going to let this hurt me.
Exactly. I'm not going to let this spill over, right? So they did a daily diary study. There was about 120 people that they did a data collection a few years ago in Germany, and they obviously got people with family responsibilities, either a spouse, children, both, people who are working at least 20 hours. And what they found is that the data largely supported their hypotheses. So people who have high workload, they do engage in more rumination, and that will negatively affect their work to family enrichment. People with high workload also will engage in more problem solving pondering, and that will predict more to work to home enrichment. So it explains those conflicting results we see. And perceived boundary control did have a moderating effect, but only for the positive path. So if you think that you have control over your work and life, you're more likely to pull on that positive problem solving pondering and having more beneficial spillover. But if you think you have control over those separations, over those boundaries, and you're engaging in work-related rumination, it's not helping you, right? It's still, the rumination goes to your negative work-to-family spillover.
You might think you have control, but you're still ruminating.
Exactly. Like control is
Yeah,
great, but you're still very tense and you can't stop thinking about this, right? So that was a study. Again, pretty straightforward, but I found it pretty interesting because, it just helps explain like, as with anything, something like a really demanding job is a mixed bag, right? There are good things, there are bad things, and that's going to play out in how we sort of pull in those benefits from our job into our work life.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. That's so cool. It does make me think of just like jobs that are more, you know? You're gonna have the good and the bad. And then the question is like, how do we get that good to outweigh the bad? And it sounds like one way is having control over those boundaries so we can like upregulate the positive outcomes. And then one way is like doing what we can to not ruminate and just instead like problem solve. But like, I totally understand that feeling of you're flying high from having solved problems that you're having at work, but like at home of like, okay, yes, like I'm physiologically aroused, right? I'm like, I've got the energy because I have this problem, but like I solved it. Like I know what I'm gonna do. And like, oh, let's
Yes, you
go. I'm
feel good
ready.
about yourself.
Yeah. And then you can like take that in to parenting or whatever relationship. And you're like, let me tell you about this. Or like, even if you're not talking about work, you still have that like,
Yes.
that's cool. That's really cool. What should you like do as a manager then to like help facilitate your employees' experience of
Well,
this?
it's funny because the authors talked a lot about what you did about reducing work-related rumination. And like for me, they mentioned like the appraisal. For me, it all came back to how can you help move the needle on how people are interpreting a high workload? So like bringing in my super like, being in industry, being aware of trends, like we are in a time of economic uncertainty. A lot of people are clinging to their jobs, but companies aren't hiring at the rate that they used to. People are being asked to do a lot more with less compared to any time we can see in the last 5 years, right? And so I think that unfortunately, just a lot of disruption in the market, a lot of changes, but being asked to do more is just going to continue to increase, right? So that's an unfortunate reality. And my question is, what can managers to do to help employees interpret that positively? And I do think, my leader does stuff like this all the time, right? This is a new demand that's coming on our team. This is why it's so interesting and unique. This is the impact that it's going to have. This is why it matters. Is it something you're interested in as a stretch opportunity? Do you want to be the practice lead for this? And I'm like, yes, right? So like there's like that type of empowerment. And so while yes, like for instance, I'm giving a new area of business, a new area of work, a body of work that I'm taking over as an example, and it has increased the volume of my workload, I am able to feel empowered in that. And I'm able to I'm more likely to come off of that going, wow, look at all this stuff that I'm learning, right? So like, what can the manager do to help with that appraisal, shifting it from tense? And like, also, what can the manager do to help the employee prioritize when the workload's really high, right? Like you are dealing with a lot of crap. Tell me what's coming at you. Does this matter? Maybe not. Let's try to de-escalate this. Is this a persistent problem? Who else should this be going to? How can I help advocate for this piece to not fall on you as much? Like that's what's sort of coming into my mind.
Yeah. Oh, I love all that. Especially, I mean, both the framing and the resources of like, there's a lot of workload increase, as you mentioned, for everyone right now that like, yeah, there aren't more resources to help you outweigh that increase. And like, you're probably not getting compensated for that increase either. Like, you're expected to do the same or do more, but you're getting paid the same or whatever. And like, we see that too of, from on high, it's looking like maybe we're going to be teaching bigger classes, which is not great for us, not great for our students. And like that's out of our hands, it's out of everyone's hands. And so is it being framed as like this cool stretch opportunity? Absolutely not. It is being framed as like this sucks for you, this sucks for us. Go forward and do it.
That sounds so impossibly demotivating. Like,
Yeah. And I'm sure it's not just like academia. It's, I'm sure that there are a lot of companies that are like, yep, our quarterly reports weren't what they need to be. So here's what we're doing. But I like your manager sounds like a
I
phenomenal
literally
saleswoman.
love my leader. She's amazing. To be fair, though, like the empowerment, she did ask me. She was like, what do you think about taking this over? Right. So, like that choice that I had, you know what I mean?
Well, and we know that like that's so important that like feeling like you have some sort of autonomy and control, which gets to the other part, like the resources, where like if you can't have autonomy and control, how do we give you the resources to deal with like increased workload, or can we give you control around other things? And I think that's a really good point of like, does it have to be yes and to work, or can it be like
Yeah.
or you know, or like which of these balls are made of rubber and which of these balls are made of glass? Like I'm gonna drop a ball. I want to drop one that's gonna bounce back up later. And like that's where a manager can come in, or like your own processes. And it's because this was a daily diary, this is like on days when my workload's higher than normal, rather than like I have higher workload than everyone else and here's my outcomes. And so this is something like we all have to be engaging in, is like relative to where my normal is, there will be days that I have higher workload. So how do I handle that on the daily level, and how does my manager help me handle that on the daily level? And I think that's also a really cool reframe too, of this isn't something that's static. This is a daily fluctuating thing. And like, what can we do on the daily level to make sure that like on the daily level, it's not creating that harm and it's is creating that benefit. Super cool. Was there anything surprising to you?
I would say maybe the only thing that was really surprising to me is just that, we don't have more research sort of examining why workload is this strange double-headed beast. Like, you know what I mean? Like that to me is like, this makes perfect sense, right? So just more in this area about like, how do we deal with this stressor, right? How do we deal with it? And how can we think about it maybe not as a stressor, but as an opportunity in some cases? So yeah, I thought it was a really cool study.
Very cool. Thanks for sharing with me. And, here's hoping to enriching workload
yes,
for you, Mariana.
Thank you. And for you as well.
Thanks. Bye. Healthy Work is a podcast written and executive produced by Keaton Fletcher and Mariana Arvon. This episode is produced, mixed, and edited by Keaton Fletcher. Artwork is by Keaton Fletcher. And our music is Zero, Microsong by Steve Combs. Please like us, follow us, and subscribe on whatever podcasting software you use. And please leave a review on the iTunes store. It really does help get us out there.